Hello, everyone. I'm Randy Arrington, and welcome to the 56th episode of Page Valley Livin. We're here today in Town Hall in the town of Luray to talk with Town Manager Bryan Chrisman about some recent water concerns in town, where the town issued on Monday, the January 27th, a water conservation request. We're going to check out where the water situation is now and maybe even take a little time to talk about what our water system and infrastructure looks like for the years to come. We're going to talk about all that and much more in just a moment, but first, a word from our sponsor.
Whispering Pines Assisted Living is now accepting new admissions. Quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, memory support, and short-term respite stays are all offered by Whispering Pines Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, where home and heart meet. Call for a tour today on Leakesville Road in Luray or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everyone, for our 56th episode of Page Valley Living. We are filming this episode on Tuesday, February the 4th, and it will be airing on Wednesday, February the 5th. And once again, thank you, Bryan Chrisman, for being here today.
Thank you, Randy.
Spending some time with. I know you've been a busy fella lately. A lot's been going on, and so let's jump right into it. Let's ask the obvious question. Were we ever in danger of running out of water in Luray?
No, Randy, not ever. We're fortunate to be blessed with a lot of great water supply, and our system was functioning perfectly. The real issue was rebuilding our reservoir and our tank capacities while the usage was occurring. So once we started to notice that, we asked the community to help us out and just voluntarily conserve water where they could. And we were able to get some testing done and a few repairs done, and now we're back in great shape.
And before we talk about, what the problem was and all of that, now currently, as you told me just a moment ago off camera, that at conservation request has been lifted, right?
It has. Yesterday evening, later on yesterday afternoon, we had elected to go ahead and pull that. We wanted to get a full weekend's worth of usage. We get more weekend usage than we do during the weekday because more people are at home, they're taking showers, doing laundry, all those kind of things on the weekend. And so we want to get a full weekend through there after the repairs just to make sure that our system would stay stabilized and continue to improve, and that occurred. So we changed the message on our portable message boards out around town, and then we posted a few things on the website and Facebook late yesterday.
So the water conservation request comes out on Monday, January the 27th. So when did you first notice that there was a problem? How did you notice it? And then when did you finally locate it?
Right. So quite a few problems that we found. Okay. Most of them were caused by that severe cold snap we had last week, the previous week. So we had 4 or 5 nights there, single digit temperatures are very low. And when that occurs, water lines break. And so we started to notice system numbers ticking down slowly, like volumes, pressures. Pressure was dropping, and then our flows, it's taking longer for us to fill things, fill our tanks, and we were steadily losing incrementally water out of our reservoir out on Lake Arrowhead Road.
And when did you locate where the problem was, and where were they? Well, you said there were multiple.
Multiples. We had them all over town. We found and repaired 5 4-inch water lines, which are significant, at various points in the community. And we were fixing them as soon as we found them. And so we had a lot of help from the Virginia Rural Water Association, sent a couple guys up here to help us locate problems. They're working all over Virginia for communities that have exactly the same problem as we have.
Right.
And then we have a professional firm, Water Loss Incorporated, that came in. They have some really high-tech equipment, and they were able to pinpoint some things that we weren't able to find in the first round.
Now, you say the cold weather caused it, so I'm jumping having a leap here to say frozen pipes is what it was, right?
What happens is the expansion, the freeze and thaw of the ground puts external pressure on the pipes and causes them to crack. And when that happens, the water leaks out.
Just out of curiosity, were any of these like old terracotta clay pipes, or were they different?
Most of them were cast iron or ductile iron. We have some galvanized, but most of the stuff that we fixed were ductile iron pipes. And 4-inch lines, for some reason, have a tendency to crack when smaller lines that are plastic and larger lines like 6 and 8s don't crack. a 4-inch line. We get a lot of our water loss problems out of 4-inch lines.
Interesting, interesting. So now the potential low water supply warning, that's lifted. Our supply is back up to where it should be.
Yep. We have a section in our ordinance where it talks about drought water levels from our source water supplies, as well as low water supply capabilities within the system. We had plenty of water. We had plenty of way to get it to the community. Our system pressures and volume stayed up because we increased our pumps at our plants and our pump stations. So we received very few calls, if at any, actually, on loss of pressure or volume. So we were able to keep the community supplied. It was just our reservoirs, our water reserves that we were having a little bit of challenge, filling those back up timely.
You may not have all the answers to this yet because you're probably still working through it, but just for the taxpayers' peace of mind or their sake, can we put an approximate price tag on what this problem caused us, and where will the funds come from to pay for it? Will it have to come out of reserve, or is there a contingency fund built in for this type of thing?
Yeah, overall costs were fairly low. We budget monies every year for fixing water lines because we know it's going to happen.
Right.
And so we keep a fair inventory of supplies. Our town public works crews did all the repairs.
Oh,
so we had all of our supplies already on hand.
No third-party contractor.
No third-party contractors doing the repairs. Yep, we were able to do it all in-house. We had some third-party help helping us find those leaks, but repairing those leaks, we pay for that ourselves, just due to the staff we have on hand and the supplies we have on hand.
I know you probably hate doing this, but if we had to ballpark what this might have cost us?
I think probably overall, we're looking at probably a $12,000, $10,000 to $12,000 overall expense.
That's not as bad as I would have thought. Because when you start talking water and sewer, it's
price
it can
tag.
go up quick.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's expensive.
So we were looking for residents to help out So I guess we're looking at, it was just a few days that this was going on.
Right.
Did you all notice that there was some drop in usage? Were people maybe taking heed to it?
Yeah. We were hopeful that it was. Really, in terms of our ability to gauge that, we don't know whether us fixing the leak causes the less water usage or whether our community helping us help to contribute to that fact. Either way, it's a great thing. So we do really appreciate the public and our businesses and our citizens for doing what they could. It certainly can't hurt. Anything that they're able to contribute helps the cause and allows us to do that. But we don't really know which causes but we did see system pressure start to rise again, which means we're sealing off leaks.
Okay.
And so we're backing our pumps down as our system gets tighter. The leaks start to, we don't lose that water, we don't lose that pressure. We have to make sure we back our pressures down at the pumps and the pump stations to make sure that we don't blow anything else apart by having too high pressures or volumes pushing into the system.
Well, not only were there, one morning I saw -5 on my thermometer in the car, but I don't know what it exactly was. It was bouncing between -5 and 5, which is still, that's cold.
Correct.
Okay.
It's very
so
cold.
not only are your workers out there having to work in this cold, you had said at one point in your release that frozen ground, snow cover, and melting snow and ice were making it difficult to pinpoint the problem, but it looks like in a period of maybe 5 days or less, y'all had this thing under control.
We did. We were very fortunate. Snow cover insulates the ground a little bit. So if the ground is frozen, it traps that cold temperatures underneath of there, which exacerbates a little bit of our issue. It also covers up some of the leaky water because it'll freeze. And then it's ice, but it's covered with snow, so we can't see it. So the only real way we found is we started testing system pressures on hydrants, but we found that we were getting a lot better results from using audio sensing equipment. And so that's what rural water brought up with them, and that's what our water loss consultant brought with them. And we had a lot of success there. But we did really find them and fix them fairly quickly. The melting snow caused a few folks to call in. Once we posted the notices and asked for voluntary conservation for people to keep an eye on things, we did get a few calls from folks that said, hey, there's a lot of water at point A. We would immediately send town staff out there to investigate that.
Very good, very good. Well, there you have it, folks. The water conservation request issued by the town of Luray on Monday, January 27th has been lifted. Doesn't mean you need to go crazy and waste a bunch of water,
Correct.
but that has been lifted and we're not under that conservation request. The repairs have been made. The system is back up and working. And when we come back in just a moment, we're going to talk with Bryan Chrisman again about a little bit about, how the system looks overall, how the federal ARPA funds helped us improve that system, and maybe how we're looking, say, maybe 10 years out with our infrastructure and the potential for residential growth in the area. We'll talk about all of that and much more in just a moment when we return. But first, another word from our sponsor.
Hawksbill Assisted Living in Luray is now accepting new admissions. Hawksbill Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, offers quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, and veterans aid and attendance. Come visit Hawksbill Assisted Living, located near the beautiful Hawksbill Greenway in Luray. Call for a tour today or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Page Valley Livin. We're here today talking with Bryan Chrisman, the town manager of Luray, about water. Something that, Bryan, I think in the next, I was going to say 50 years, but maybe in the next 10 or 20 years, that's going to be a valuable commodity. We already see people out west, not only with the California wildfires, but just in the west in general, west of the Rockies. Water is a big-time commodity between the farmers and all of the dry area they have. But here in Luray, we're kind of fortunate. Tell me a little bit about our overall water supply and how some of the local springs like Hudson and Height and maybe even Yeager, how they tie into our water supply.
Sure. Thank you again for asking these questions. They're very important for our community. Luray is blessed with water supply quantities and quality. We have several springs. Height Spring, as you mentioned, is one of our principal sources. Hudson Spring currently is still on our permit, but we're not pulling water from that area right now.
That's kind of on the shelf then.
It is. We have it. We keep it on our permit in the event we need it, but we don't really have it. Yeager is not on our permit right now with the state, but it's an enormous water resource that the town owns north of town, probably 7 to 8 million gallons of water a day capacity there.
Wow.
We only push about, on average day, about 750,000 gallons of water into our system.
Oh, wow.
And that includes keeping our reservoirs and our tanks full. So we push less out than a million. But we have a drilled industrial well at the water treatment plant. And that plant is rated for 3 million gallons a day capacity. Currently we have 2 skids in there that process about 750,000 gallons a day each, or have the capability to do that. And so we can produce about 1.5 million gallons a day out of that plant right now, and we only use about half of that. We only push about half of that into the system.
Now, which one you said, Height or Hudson, was the one that was on the shelf?
Hudson Spring.
Hudson. So Hudson Spring, does it actually have infrastructure there where we can actually go in and turn a valve, or is it just a resource that's there, but we'd have to go in and build infrastructure to draw the water out? What is that?
Yeah, the Hudson Spring used to provide direct injection water into the southern part of the system, and they had chlorination and fluoridation capabilities at that site. When we went to membrane filtration at the water treatment plant back in, I think it was 2010, we were not able to loop the source water from Hudson all the way down to the water treatment plant for membrane filtration. Okay. So we simply mothballed it. In an emergency, though, we could reinstate disinfection procedures there and input that directly back into the system.
But now Yeager, which is also a resource, there is no infrastructure there, right? You'd have to build some piping and
that's correct.
All that. Yeah.
Long-term plans for the town, of course, were to at some point in time build a raw water pumping facility up on the hill out of the floodplain above Yeager, and pull some of that water and then either push it into a treatment works. At one time, Luray had talked about many years ago, a bottling plant or things like that. It is a lot of water. We have a huge amount of resources. We bypass more water every day than most communities will use in a 24-hour period. Very fortunate with our water resources.
I was just going to repeat that. I think Luray is in a very, very good situation with water. And again, I think as we go into the future, that's going to be something that is going to make Luray an even more special place.
Right.
I moved here in 2000, August of 2000, and ever since that time, I've been saying, Luray is on the edge of a growth spurt. Luray's on the edge of a growth spurt. I thought in 2006 some things were happening, and we were getting these festivals and the bike race and stuff was, oh, we're going to start growing. We're going to see. Well, one of these days it's really going to happen, and I think we've seen the beginnings of some of it with Luray Landing up behind Walmart, some construction out on Fairview. There are some homes there, and there is a need or a demand, I would say, in terms of housing. So I think some contractors are eventually going to come on board, see that opportunity, and try to supply, put that supply out there. So, with relation to water, how do you feel about our water supply and our water system in terms of being able to absorb residential growth that we probably expect over the next decade?
We're in great shape. I think that Luray's development, we've seen some development out on the west end. Unfortunately, most of our water resources and the plant are on the east end of town. So we have to push that water all the way through Luray. So having a second source or second treatment works on the west end, or at least more capacity on the west end in terms of storage and piping network would be very helpful for us, operationally. I think we're well set up for additional development inside our corporate boundary. We've got a lot of platted lots, undeveloped property that is currently not being utilized for housing that could very easily be utilized. And so water lines, a lot of our water lines in Luray are older. We try to replace them or repair them as much as we can as time and money allow. But it is something that I think we're set up a lot better. Pushing water at a certain pressure is a lot easier than the sewer portion of the question. Okay. That becomes a limiting issue in a lot of cases. And in a lot of localities, we're not alone in that. But I think overall, I'd love to have additional capacity on the west end. In fact, that's some of our priorities moving forward for our water system.
Well, great segue. That's why they call you a professional, man. Great segue, because I was going to ask about sewer. We've been talking water. Sewer is the other half of that equation, and infrastructure within the town. Is water ahead of sewer? Is sewer ahead of water? Are they about even?
I'd say the water is definitely, we have more capacity on our water side. Our current treatment plant's not only at 2/3 build out. So we could add another skid in there for another 1 million gallons a day if we had to.
That's for water.
That's for water. Okay. And then you got to push that everywhere. We have a lot of hilly territory around here. Okay. So getting it up and down is important. Sewer, we have a fair amount of capacity at our sewer plant. Currently in town, there's a Pleasance Construction is doing sewer line, trunk line lining. So they're lining the older sewer lines to keep inflow water coming in from groundwater or other water sources like the creek from getting into our sewer plant collection network. There's two ways to build capacity at a plant, whether it's water or sewer. You can either build the plant bigger with more capability, or you can conserve available capacity by reducing leaks into your system for stormwater and groundwater.
Right,
and that's and that's what we're doing right now down along the Greenway. We get calls about that. So from the park and ride down past Jaeger Spring, we're lining over 3,000 linear feet of that, our main trunk line, to try to exclude that.
Okay. And just a quick definition for the folks who are listening.
Sure.
Infiltration and inflow?
Inflow. You got it. Great job.
And one is about like when you have rain and additional water goes into the system. The other is leaks.
Into the pipes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I didn't mean to
get Great job.
Listening to those meetings pays off, man. Listening to those meetings pays off.
Excellent.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here, but generally, so you're saying we feel pretty good about our system. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, how much difference has the ARPA funds made, the federal funds that have come in to help primarily to help improve infrastructure? How much has that has it put us ahead? Are we a little ahead of schedule because of that? I know we did the digital meter readers and things like that. So what have we done with ARPA, and how has that helped us position for the next 10 or 20 years?
Great question. It's hugely helpful. Council did a great job utilizing their ARPA money, in my experience, in my opinion. We put a significant amount of those funds toward our water and wastewater infrastructure. And the work that's being done down here at Pleasance right now is an example of that. Lining those pipes to conserve that existing capacity for future development within Luray. Our sewer network continues to need improvement on the east end. We have projects that we're going to be doing plans to improve that. We have 2 developers right now on the east side of town that are looking at potential housing developments. So sewer is a big question there, but council did a great job allocating those funds. The staff did a great job of identifying and getting estimates for those projects. Our water system situation, if we would have had to combat this situation with the old pumps that we replaced a year and a half ago, not sure that we'd have had the same outcome. There would have probably been a longer period before we could recover. Probably $500,000 went into the water system infrastructure upgrades at the water treatment plant and nearby at our Heights Spring and some of our other local resources. So sewer, we're getting that infrastructure built out now. We're going to be upgrading our ultraviolet light disinfection system, which is important for the environment and for our permit capabilities. We'd also like to improve our ability to handle biosolids, and sludge is a byproduct of the wastewater treatment work. So we're looking at that technology and improving that. But just kind of stealing off some of the I&I to make to reserve some of that capacity, that we have in the plant. We don't want to be treating stormwater. We want to be treating wastewater, and it's very expensive to treat that. So I think we did a great job as a town putting the money where we needed it most. Infrastructure is our single largest investment, and so when we put funds against that, it really buys time. We probably bought 15 to 20 years of advantages just with the water system improvements alone, and we'll get another 5 to 10 years out of some of these wastewater projects that we're doing right now.
Excellent. You read my mind, and I had heard a council member say that because of the ARPA funds and what we were allowed to do, that it probably set us up pretty good for 10 or 15 years.
It totally did.
Confirmed that.
Totally did.
So not only do we have beautiful views, a national park, and a fabled river, we got really good water.
We do. We do. Yeah, we're very fortunate.
Bryan Chrisman, thank you so much for being with us today.
Appreciate
you heard it, folks. Town of Luray, good shape with their water. The water conservation request has been lifted, and the town has positioned themselves well for the growth coming, hopefully maybe in the next decade or so. Again, folks, this has been the 56th episode of Page Valley Living. We want to thank Eleanor Arrington for her work behind the camera and in the editing room this week. And as always, we want to remind you to go down to the Page County Animal Shelter and help all of our furry friends find a forever home. For Bryan Chrisman, I'm Randy Arrington. Until next week, enjoy that Page Valley Living.